without further ado, let's just get straight to it. What if your body could heal itself? Not through medicine, but through meditation. Tonight, we're reading about a woman who did just that. Welcome in, everyone. I am Brittany, your manifesting mentor. And tonight, we're diving into chapter one, part one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural. This chapter begins with an incredible healing story and a story, and it lays the foundation for everything that this book teaches us about the power of the mind and body connection. And so, if you're interested in manifestation, healing, or simply becoming more in control of your personal reality, this chapter is an absolute must. As I read, feel free to drop your thoughts, questions, or reflections in the comments, and I will absolutely address them. I really want to build this community, so do not be shy because I talk back. um, yeah, so without further ado, let's get it popping. Here we go. Chapter one, opening the door to the supernatural. As spring was ending and the first glimpse of summer was approaching, what first appeared to be a typical Sunday afternoon in June 2007 turned out to be anything but typical for Anna Williams. The French doors from the living room to the garden were open wide, and the thin white curtains danced lightly in the breeze as scents from the garden floated inside. Streams of sunlight shone brightly all around Anna as she lounged comfortably. A chorus of birds chirped and thrilled outside, and Anna could hear the distant melody of children's laughter and playful splashing coming from a neighbor's swimming pool. Anna's 12-year-old son reclined on the sofa reading a book, and she could hear her 11-year-old daughter in the room directly above her, singing to herself as she played. A psychotherapist, Anna worked as a manager and board member for a major psychiatric institution in Amsterdam, whose profits totaled more than 10 million euros annually. She often caught up on professional reading on the weekends, and on this day she was sitting in her red leather chair reading a journal article. Little did Anna know what Little did Anna know that what looked like a perfect world to anyone peering into her living room that day would become a nightmare within minutes. Anna felt a bit distracted, noticing that her attention wasn't fully engaged in the material she was attempting to study. She set her papers down and paused, suddenly wondering again where her husband had gone. He had left the house early that morning while she was taking a shower. Without saying where he was headed, he had simply disappeared. Okay, Mr. Man. The children had told her that their father had said goodbye, giving each of them a big hug before he left. She tried to reach him on his cell phone many times, but he hadn't returned her calls. She tried one more time. No answer. Something definitely felt odd. At 3:30 p.m., the doorbell rang, and when Anna opened the front door, she found two police officers standing outside. "Are you Miss Williams?" one of them asked. When she confirmed that she was indeed Mrs. Williams, the officer asked her if he could come inside and talk to her. Concerned and a bit confused, she complied. Then they delivered the news. Earlier that morning, her husband had jumped off of one of the tallest buildings in the center of the city. Whoo! Yeah, he's starting off with a big bang. That's how you do it, Dr. Joe. Uh, Not surprisingly, the fall was fatal. Anna and her two children sat in shock and disbelief. Anna's breath momentarily stopped, and as she then gasped for air, she started to shake uncontrollably. The moment she seemed frozen in time. The moment she seemed frozen in time. While her children sat paralyzed in shock, Anna tried to hide her pain and stress for their sakes. An intense pain suddenly shot through her head and she simultaneously felt a deep, hollow ache in her gut. Her neck and shoulders instantly stiffened as her mind frantically raced from thought to thought. The hormones of stress had overtaken her, and Anna was now in survival mode. Y'all, Joe started off with a bang, and poor Anna, husband, stopped responding, gave the kids a kiss, barely said anything to her, jumped off a building, killed himself. And she is experiencing complete nervous system shutdown dysregulation as he's explaining this. And I want y'all to really pay attention to this. How stress hormones take over. From a scientific standpoint, living in stress is living in survival. When we perceive a stressful circumstance that threatens us in some way, one for which we cannot predict or control the outcome, a primitive nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system turns on and the body mobilizes an enormous amount of energy in response to the stressor. Physiologically, the body is automatically tapping into the resources it will need to deal with the current danger. This is what Dr. Joe calls fight or flight. He further explains the pupils dilate so we can see better, the heart rate and respiratory rate increase so we can run, fight, or hide. More glucose is released into the bloodstream to make more energy available to our cells, and our blood flow is shunted to the extremities and away from our internal organs so we can move quickly if we need to. This is how like fascinating, remarkable the human body is. It automatically knows how to protect itself. It automatically knows how to get itself out of danger. It automatically knows how to fix what's not right when it's given the right circumstances and environment. The immune system initially dials up and then dials down as adrenaline and cortisol flood the muscles, providing a rush of energy to either escape or fend off the stressor. Circulation moves out of the rational forebrain and is instead relayed to our hindbrain. So we have less capacity to think creatively and instead rely more on our instinct to instantly react. In Anna's case, the stressful news of her husband's suicide threw her brain and body into just such a state of survival. In the short term, all the organisms can tolerate adverse conditions by fighting, hiding, or fleeing from an impending stressor. All of us are built for dealing with short-term bursts of stress. When the event is over, the body normally returns to balance within hours, increasing its energy levels and restoring its vital resources. But when the stress doesn't end within hours, the body never returns to balance. I need y'all to really pay attention to this because so many of us have had things that have happened in our lives that have dysregulated us for more than just hours. I'm talking days, weeks, months, years, so many people. In truth, no organism in nature can endure living in emergency mode for extended periods of time. Y'all hear that? Because of our large brains, human beings are capable of thinking about their problems, reliving past events, or even forecasting future worst case scenarios and situations, thus turning on a cascade of stress chemicals by thought alone. Guys, this means that we are able to analyze the things that are happening in our lives, relive past events in this present moment as if it's happening right now. It's an imaginal act. And Neville Goddard teaches that imagination creates, so we're bringing the past into the present by remembering traumatic events. This is a whole bar, y'all. We can knock our brains and bodies out of normal physiology just by thinking about an all too familiar past or trying to control an unpredictable future. This is what you call survival mode. And so many of us, yeah, are living in it. Every day, Anna relived that event over and over in her mind. What she didn't realize was that her body did not know the difference between the original event that created the stress response and the memory of the event, which created the same emotions as the real life experience all over again. Anna was producing the same chemistry in her brain and body as if the event were actually happening again and again. Subsequently, her brain was continuously wiring the event into her memory bank, and her body was emotionally experiencing the same chemicals from the past at least 100 times a day. They say we think about 60,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and 90% of those thoughts are from the day before. So obviously, she went through something traumatic, and she played these memories at least 100 times a day, creating emotions in her body that are chemical reactions: cortisol, adrenaline, fight or flight, survival. By repeatedly recalling the experience, she was unintentionally anchoring her brain and body to the past. Emotions are the chemical consequences or feedback of past experiences. As our senses record incoming information from the environment, clusters of neurons organize into networks. When they freeze into a pattern, the brain makes a chemical that is then sent throughout the body. The chemical is called an emotion. We remember events better when we can remember how they feel. We remember events better when we can remember how they feel, which says that if we have that memory, we also have that emotion stored in our bodies. If we have the memory stored in our brains, that's a lot. Oh boy. As our, hold on. The stronger the emotional quotient from an event, either good or bad, the stronger the charge in our internal chemistry. When we notice a significant change inside of us, the brain pays attention to whoever or whatever is causing the change outside of us, and it takes a snapshot of the outer experience. That is what you call a memory. Therefore, the memory of an event can become branded neurologically in the brain, and that scene becomes frozen in time in our gray matter, just as it did for Anna. The combination of various people or objects at a particular time and place from that stressful experience is etched in our neural architecture as a holographic image. That is how we create a long term memory. Therefore, the experience becomes imprinted in the neural circuitry and the emotion is stored in the body. And that's how our past becomes our biology. In other words, when we experience a traumatic event, we tend to think neurologically within the circuitry of that experience, and we tend to feel chemically within the boundaries of the emotions from the event. So, our entire state of being, how we think, and how we feel becomes biologically stuck in the past. As you can imagine, Anna was feeling a rush of negative emotions, tremendous sadness and pain, victimization, grief, guilt, shame, despair, anger, hatred, frustration, resentment, shock, fear, anxiety, worry, overwhelm, anguish, hopelessness, powerlessness, isolation, loneliness, disbelief, and betrayal. And none of those emotions dissipate quickly. As Anna analyzed her life within the emotions of the past, she kept suffering more and more because she couldn't think greater than how she constantly felt. And since emotions are a record of the past, she was thinking in the past, and every day she felt worse and worse. As a psychotherapist, she could rationally and intellectually understand what was happening to her, but all her insights couldn't get beyond her suffering. People in her life started treating her as a person who had lost her husband, and that became her new identity. This says a lot about how we wear our experiences as our I am. She associated her memories and feelings with the reason she was in her present state. When anyone asked her why she felt so bad, she told the story of the suicide, each time reliving the pain, anguish, and suffering over again. All along, Anna kept firing the same circuits in her brain and reproducing the same emotions, conditioning her brain and body further into the past. Every day, she was thinking, acting, and feeling as if her past were still alive. And since how we think, how we act, and how we feel is our personality, Anna's personality was completely created by the past. From a biological standpoint, in repeatedly telling the narrative of her husband's suicide, Anna literally couldn't get beyond what happened. That was a whole lot. And because I know that this story gets even better, I am going to continue this story in my next video because I don't want you to sit for too long to digest this. But guys, this is amazing. How he's able to share with us what happens when trauma happens, what happens within us when trauma happens in our lives, and how he was able to break down how we wear this as our identity for years and years and don't even know it. We don't know that we're subconsciously living stories of things that left an emotional impression. And so I want to continue this in my next video. I will get to the comments if this left anything for you to reflect on, if you have any questions, or if you have any thoughts about it, please comment below. I will definitely get to your questions and reflections and comments. Um, Stay tuned for part 2 of chapter 1.